Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I decided to film a video about my labor and delivery when I had my twin boys. Now this was like almost 2.5 years ago, so hopefully I could remember as much as I can, because I did have a C-section and I did have like drugs in my system, but I think for the most part I remembered pretty much everything. I was having lots of appointments, and I did meet my OB, so that was going to be the lady who was going to deliver my baby for me. She was a really sweet girl, our woman. But it was like almost maybe like 2 weeks, or no, maybe it was about almost a month, like a little less than a month from my actual due date. So my due date was April 15th, but I ended up having my kids March 23rd. So I did have them kind of early, but I'm going to explain all of that as far as like what's early and considered like normal term for twin pregnancy and all of that. So I made it to 36 weeks pregnant with twins, and in twin world that is amazing. That's pretty much full term almost, and that's about as far as I'm pretty sure you can go a lot longer than that, but 36 and up is a really good, like a really good time you want to, you know, have your kids, I guess. I don't know how else to word that, sorry. But so I did make it up to 36 weeks. So my OB was talking to me about my delivery options, and she was also just kind of telling me that things could not, I don't want to say go wrong, but she was just basically explaining that I could still end up in a C-section even if I did opt for pushing them out. So I knew in my mind I was probably gonna get an epidural. I wasn't gonna like ask for one right away. I wanted to see what I could handle. That was my plan. I just wanted to see what I could handle and see if I could push these twins out naturally, because I did see a few videos of women doing it, and I just thought, well, let me just try that just to see if I could do it. So at my appointment, we had done an ultrasound, and both of the boys had flipped at this point, so that means that they were head down, and that was really good news for me. And she basically just told me as long as my kids stay in this position, I'm good to go as far as pushing a baby out. So I was really happy. I thought, okay, I can do this. I knew right away that the first one to come out would have been the baby on my right side, and that was Ezekiel. So we were just, you know, she would say, so baby A is probably going to come out first, because the way Ezekiel was sitting in my tummy, he was probably going to be the one to come out first, and then Daniel would come out after. So I'm trying to explain this as much as I can, because I'm not like a professional person when it comes to this stuff. But basically she was telling me, but if one baby happens to move by the time I come to my next appointment, there might be a chance that I will have to, you know, push a baby out, but one of the babies might get stuck in my pelvis or something like that. This baby B would get stuck in my pelvis pretty much, she was telling me, which would have been Daniel. And I just was like, okay, so then like what do I do if that happens? And she just started to explain to me that normally when that happens, the doctor reaches in and, you know, adjusts the baby and kind of pulls the baby down so he can come back into the birth canal. I don't know. And she was just kind of telling me like how far she would have to reach into me, and I just was not here for it. I never even considered like, oh, a baby can get stuck and they might have to literally reach in there and pull a baby out. I was literally not mentally ready for that. Some people might be like, girl, you're already pregnant, you should have already known that. Well, I didn't even consider that, and I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for that. So she also just kind of told me again like the factors of everything could be going right, but then last minute I could still end up in an emergency C-section. And I knew for me, I don't think I could have handled that either. Just to hear like emergency C-section, it sounds kind of scary, and I just wasn't sure if I could, you know, handle, you know, doing real labor, pushing a baby out, doing all of that hard work, and then still having to end up in a C-section with a huge scar, and also my my friend down there hurting. So I just was not here for that. So my doctor ended up telling me as well I could just opt for a C-section altogether and get it done that way. So I wasn't ready to make a decision that day. I asked her if we can talk, you know, she can give me some time to think about it, and then I will come back and talk to her. So she gave me a few days until my next appointment, because like I said, I was seeing them, it seemed like once or twice a week. I was seeing people in the actual hospital, and I was also having to go into a different city for my anatomy scans and all of that. I'm trying to remember all the terms, but so I gave myself a week. I talked about it with Brandon, talked about it with my mom and my sister, and they all just basically told me I should just do what I think is best. My sister obviously would tell me like, you can, like, women push babies out all the time, you could do it. And my mom had 3 sections, so she was just kind of telling me, you know, the cons of it all. But at the end of the day, it was my decision, and I decided to just go for the C-section after I thought about, again, someone reaching up there. And then even if I did have a really great labor with Ezekiel, I still could have possibly ended up in a C-section with Daniel. I just wasn't ready for that. In my mind, I was thinking like, let's just get it all done at once. I know that's not a great option for everyone, but like I said, that was just something I chose to do, and I knew in my mind I could handle. So I had decided for my C-section. So I had went to my doctor. It was like March 10th, March 11th or something like that, and she had basically told me if I wasn't going into natural labor within the next 7 to 10 days, they were going to have to induce me or something like that, just because, again, my babies were they were getting really big in my belly, and also you don't want them, I don't know, they were just getting really big at that point. Like, I was huge. And if you guys are, if you've ever been pregnant, think of the biggest you were at the end of your pregnancy, okay? That's how big I was around 26 to 27 weeks. So I was looking full term basically at like 5.5 months pregnant. So I was just over it by the time I was like at 36 weeks. But March 22nd, that night, we did everything, you know, usual, our normal schedule. I would take my shower, go to bed, and just try to sleep, because towards the end of your pregnancy you're not sleeping. So I just remember it was like around 12:30 at night, and I started to get like contractions. They were not Braxton Hicks, like there's a huge difference. 6 to 10 minutes apart, you know, you just kind of want to start paying attention to them. But contractions end up being about like 2 to 4 minutes apart, and then they stopped. So I still have my notes in my phone, because I did start to time them that night, just because I wanted to make sure like I wasn't just like making something up in my head. So my first contractions started at 12:07 at night, and they would last about 23 seconds. So it was kind of long contractions, and they sucked, and then they would stop. And then 7 minutes later I would have another contraction. Again, it would last about 20 to 30 seconds. And then I would have, it was like literally every 7 minutes. Like it was literally 12:07. You guys can't see it, but it was 12:07, 12:14, 12:21, 12:28. Like it was literally every 7 minutes. And I was starting to be like, oh crap, like am I about to go into labor tonight? So they did eventually stop around 12:40. So I labored like that for about 40 minutes maybe, and they did eventually stop. And then I was like, okay, I guess nothing's happening, so I'm just gonna go to bed. But then I woke up at 5:50 in the morning, and I just had the worst contractions in the world. They literally like woke me up out of my sleep. And around that time Brandon was actually up getting ready for work, and I started to time them again, and they were lasting like about 10 seconds. So like the pain would be for 10 seconds, and then another 4 minutes they would come 10 seconds of pain, and then another 4 minutes they'd come 10 seconds of pain. So obviously at this point I had told Brandon, hey, my contractions are like 4 minutes apart, I think these are real. Brandon's tail was just like, I'm going to work, just call me if anything changes. And I was just like, dude, like I just told you I might need to go to the hospital today. But I don't know, it's a fight for another time between me and Brandon. But he did end up going to work, and I was just starting to get kind of nervous at that point, because again it was like 4 minutes apart, and you know, like around that time you should probably start heading to the hospital. So I tried to sit there for a while, and I think I waited, let me see the time. So I started at 5:50. I waited till like 6:39, and I couldn't take it anymore. I called my sister. My sister had just moved back from Japan at the time, and she was home visiting our parents. So I called her, and I was just telling her what's going on, and she just was like, you need to go to the hospital, you need to call Brandon and get over there now, because you know this seems real at this point. Because I literally could not even like talk through the pain. So I called the hospital to let them know I was coming, just to kind of be ready for me. And then I called Brandon, obviously, and told him he needs to come home. So normally it would take Brandon about 10 to 15 minutes to get back home. So even though I had showered the night before, I decided to just take one more last shower before I had to go into surgery, because I really wasn't sure what was going to happen that day, but I just kind of felt like today's the day. So I decided to take like my last shower and go to the hospital all clean. And so at this point we are on our way to the hospital, and I'm telling Brandon, like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm starting to get obviously really scared at this point, just because the pain was just like annoying. It was really annoying. And yeah, so we get to the hospital. Brandon drops me off in the front, and I walk in, and the lady, there's women at the front desks right there, and I was just I was really scared, and I just was telling them, I think I'm in labor, I need to go to the maternity place in the hospital. And it was funny because it was like a little old lady, and she was like, do you want me to like get a wheelchair for you? And you guys, I am 36 weeks pregnant with twins. My belly is like huge. I'm in crazy pain, and I want to tell her no, I'll just walk there. And so she just was like, are you sure? And I told her like, no. I was like, I don't want to like be a bother, because she was an old lady, and she was like, she just said, ma'am, you're in labor, you need to sit down, I'll push you. So she ended up getting me a wheelchair, and this little old lady pushed me up to the maternity place, and I felt a little bad, but at the same time I was just like, girl, you're about to like have your kids, so just let her push you. So I did get pushed, I did get wheeled into the place. From there, I was already familiar with the area because that's where I'd have some of my appointments. So they just wanted to take my weight one last time. So they weighed me, and from there they put me into a room, and that's when they start to hook you up with everything. And this point, I think I was either 2 or 3 centimeters dilated. I don't even remember. That was just all of that was going really fast. But I just remember she checked me. The worst pain ever. Girl, like when they check your cervix when you have twins and there's so much pressure going on down there, that was probably some of the worst pain I felt, next to my actual C-section recovery. I might be, and I'm pretty good with pain, like, you know what I mean? I can handle, I think I have a pretty good pain tolerance. So for me to say like that hurt the most, there was some real pressure going on down there. But I remember when a male doctor coming in, and he was the doctor that would put me to sleep. I can't even think of the word right now, I don't know what's wrong with me, but he was just kind of giving me the rundown of what to expect if something were to happen, and he'd have to put me to sleep. And they're just giving me all the warnings of everything. I had to sign a few papers and all of that. And I was supposed to get an epidural, but the doctor, my surgeon who ended up delivering my baby for me, she was actually in another surgery when I had come in, so she wasn't able to get all of that ready for me. So I didn't end up getting an epidural right away. So I can say like I labored for like 4 hours naturally. I know someone can labor for like days on end, and you guys are the real deal to me. I did 4 hours of that in the hospital, and it was really hard. I didn't cry when I was having contractions. I remember being really quiet. I wasn't being mean to anyone, like how the movies are. I sat really quiet and just kind of let the pain wave, like it was just like waves of pain. And I would just think myself, like I just kept thinking like, just let this one go through and you'll be fine. So that was kind of hard to do. Again, props to women who do things all natural. You guys are the real deal, that's all I can say. So while I was waiting in the room for those 4 hours, obviously I had doctors coming in and out, checking me. I had to sign papers here and there. They started to kind of give me the rundown on what to expect when I do start to get prepped for everything. So they were, putting the IV in me. Brandon was just sitting there. He hadn't even changed out of his uniform yet. They had to take him into a separate room, and because they were getting ready to wheel me into the surgery room. So when I had gotten into the surgery room, I remember it being really cold in there, and I had to like sit up and get ready for my spinal. But before they were doing all of that, they were just asking me questions, asking me if I wanted a clear curtain so I could see them pull the babies out. I opted no for that, just because I'm someone who can't handle blood. If you can handle that, go right ahead. But I just told them I'd be happy with them just bringing the baby around the curtain and letting me see them that way. So also they had given me like some anti-vomit medicine, and we'll get to that in a minute because that was one of the worst things that I ever took while I was pregnant. But so at this point I'm getting my spinal. That was kind of scary, but it's just I don't even know how to explain it. I was just in a zone where I'm just like, I don't care what you guys got to do, like get them out of me, I can't handle this pain anymore. So I was in my zone. I got the spinal done. Not to say that it didn't hurt, because it did hurt, but it was just a pinch in my nerves. And then from there I remember they told me like to quickly like kind of scoot my body over onto the surgery table, because I was on a regular hospital bed. So I had to like hurry up and get my body on the surgery table. And then from there I laid down, and it was just the weirdest feeling in the world. Obviously I had never been numbed like that, and I just remember feeling like you guys know what it's like to feel numb in your face from like the dentist. It was like that feeling, but it was like raining down my legs and my thighs and then my feet, and then I just felt nothing, obviously. But I remember my doctor, she was pinching my leg, and she just told me like, I'm pinching you right now, can you feel it? I would feel it, and then I felt nothing. And she was like telling me like, I'm pinching you really hard, are you sure? So I told her, no, I can't feel anything. So from there I remember my doctor, she was like kind of talking me through everything that she was doing, and she was like saying, okay, I'm putting the catheter in, okay, your catheter's in. And then she was just really telling me all the steps that she was doing. And then I remember hearing, okay, we're starting to like cut you. And I had told her, I remember just being really like loopy, and I was like, can you like not tell me all that, like just do it? And so she said, okay, we'll stop talking now. And then I remember them saying like, okay, go get daddy, you know, Brandon. So Brandon had come in at that point, and I remember he was on my right side of me, and I had a nurse on this side of me. So I'm laying there obviously, and I had told Brandon, like, I had already told Brandon before all this had happened, I told him that I didn't want him to look at me when my body was cut open. But they had told him like, daddy, like, do you want to see what's going on? And I like told him like it's like all slow motion, but I was just like, don't look, please. Like I was so like out of it. And Brandon's little tail, he still stood up and looked, and he said it was really weird to see. I don't even know, I need to ask him about that again, but he just said he didn't look too long, but he said it was weird. But he sat back down, and he was holding my hand the whole time. And even though I was numb and I didn't feel anything, I could still feel things moving down there. It's the weirdest feeling ever. I remember just telling myself, don't think too much into it, because then I would have scared myself. So I didn't think, like, I wasn't sitting there thinking like, oh, those are my intestines, oh, they're ripping my stomach open. Like I wasn't thinking graphically at all. I was just staying in my mind, I was staying positive. I remember just focusing a lot on Brandon. I was just looking at him a lot, just like saying, okay, like I could do this. But I remember while they were, you know, doing what they were doing down there, I felt like lots of tugging, just like a lot of tugging, and it just was the oddest feeling ever. But I ended up getting sick on the table. And if there's one thing that I wish I could have seen just for like laughter, it was me watching myself throw up, because obviously you need stomach muscles to throw up, and I didn't have any muscles like working at the time. So when I say I was literally just on my back and I was going I just remember doing that, and I just was like throwing up. But the nurse had one of those things kind of like the dentist has, where they like suck everything out of your mouth. So I remember her doing that, and I just remember her saying like, I don't know why they give you that anti-vomit medicine, because it makes every patient throw up. And I just was like, girl, like that was the worst throw up experience of my life, but still the funniest thing ever, because I just remember the noises I was making, and I couldn't feel my stomach muscles working. It was, again, a really weird sensation. After I had thrown up, I don't even know how much time had passed at that point, but I remember they pulled the first baby out, which was baby A, and that was Ezekiel. I remember me and Brandon heard him like cry, and like every parent knows, like I don't know what it is, it's just when you hear your baby's first cry, like you just break down and cry. So they pulled Ezekiel out. I remember Brandon kind of stood up to look, and Brandon just looked at me and just cried. He started crying really hard. And I remember him kissing my forehead and just, you know, saying like, you did it, like you did it, you had your first baby. Just trying to be in the moment as much as I could, even though I was kind of drugged up. But I heard Ezekiel's cry. I you know, kind of cried too. And then I remember the doctor saying like, oh, he's peeing everywhere, he's peeing. So Ezekiel came out peeing on everyone. They rushed him over to me, and I got to see Ezekiel right away. And I remember they put him on my right side of me, and me and Brandon just kind of looked at him. And I remember like my first thought in my mind when I first seen Ezekiel was like, he looks just like my brother. Like, it sounds so weird. I do have an older brother, if you guys don't know, but I just remember Ezekiel just reminded me, I don't know what it was, so much about my brother. So I was just like, he looks like Isaac. Like, I was all drugged up. Obviously, while I'm looking at Ezekiel, they're still down there working for Daniel. So I believe, from what I understand, that they took Daniel out. He had like the baby stuff stuck in his throat basically, and they couldn't really clean it out. So the nurse had taken him over to me, and she just said, is it okay if we do skin to skin with you? And I told her, you know, yeah, that's fine. So it was like, as soon as they did skin to skin with Daniel on this side of me, they, you know, had to pull my surgery gown down. They put his body on mine, which is like a very sweet moment, even though it's so gross because they just pulled this baby out of your body. It was still a really sweet moment. And I don't know what it was about skin to skin, but that did make him like spit everything up. And you know, obviously he didn't like spit up on me. They had a little towel right there for that towel to catch all the stuff that came out. But after he spit it up, so we did skin to skin, he spit up, it all came out, and then he started crying. And as soon as I seen Daniel, I don't know, I just was like, that is Brandon. Like, that is Brandon's twin. I had obviously seen so many pictures of my husband as a baby, and Daniel just looked like Brandon like right away. It was the funniest thing ever. So it was just like, I'm looking at my two little babies. The doctors allowed me to give them, you know, 2 small kisses. And just like that, they got taken away. They were getting weighed and all of that, and the doctors were working on me. And at this point, I like don't even remember Brandon letting go of my hand, because we were holding hands the whole time. And I just kind of remember like I was like reaching for something like this, like it was just really slow. And I grabbed like a nurse's hand, and I just told her like, I'm sorry, I thought you were my husband. Like, I just remember kind of talking like that, like really slow. And she just said, oh, you're fine. She held my hand with me, because at this point they're starting to like close me up and everything. So I didn't get sewed up or anything like that. I believe they used like the glue, I don't know what the right word for it is, but I did get like glued up, and they put, you know, like those surgical tape over it. I didn't end up seeing that till like the next day after I had the surgery, but I'm assuming while they were gluing my tummy back up, that's when they had taken the boys and Brandon into another room. And Brandon said I was gone for like another 25 minutes. In my mind, it was like 2 minutes. It seemed like it was really quickly. It happened really fast. And I remember them rolling me through some halls, and then we went into the separate room. And after we had went into that room, I was like freezing cold. I was shivering so bad. It was like my body was like, it was literally like this. Like, I don't know if that's because your body's in shock from the surgery. I'm not too sure. I never really looked it up, but I just remember shaking, like my entire body just like trembling, and I was freezing cold. I couldn't even, I was really sad actually, because the nurse had asked me if I wanted to hold Ezekiel and bottle feed him with their little newborn bottle, and I was shaking so bad I couldn't even hold him. So that made me, I remember I was really sad about that. I kind of cried because I was like, I want to hold him right now, but I was not. I just couldn't hold him how I had wanted to. So the nurse said that's fine. So I remember sitting there, they had brought me some, like a few heated blankets. Like, they had me wrapped up everywhere. I had all these warm blankets on me, and I'm just watching the nurse and Brandon feed the babies. And it was just really cute, and I just, you know, but again, I was still kind of out of it. So I just remember, like I said, just those little things here and there. After all of that, I remember they finally took us to my recovery room, where me and the boys stayed for 5 days. So from there, I was feeling a lot better. I was still obviously numb. I couldn't stand up yet, but I was able to finally hold my babies. So I held both of them, and I, you know, take turns holding them, and it was just obviously really sweet moments for me. Those are some of my favorite things that I love to rethink about, you know, when I think about that day. Because it was just me, Brandon, and the boys in the room, and it was just a very, one of my favorite times ever. Like I said, I was still pretty numb, and obviously I couldn't get up and walk anywhere. I had to wait a few hours for that to wear down. Remember, I had wanted to drink a lot of water just because I didn't want, because they did take my catheter out of me, but I remember my nurse telling me if I hadn't like gone pee in a certain amount of time, they would have to redo the catheter, but I wouldn't be numb anymore. So I was like, girl, where's my water bottle? So I made myself drink a lot of water, and obviously I felt the sensation, thank God, to go pee. Here's like a funny but TMI story about after my surgery. So like I said, my catheter was out at this point and I felt the sensation to have to go pee. Obviously they have like, you have like your huge pad on and all of this stuff down there, because I mean your body is starting to clean itself out. But so I remember I called my nurse, and this was going to be my first time also, by the way, getting up from the bed from my surgery. So this was my first time getting up and my first time going pee after all of this. So I remember my nurse came in and she was coming to help me to the bathroom. So she helped me sit up, which was like the worst pain ever. But I sat up and then I went to stand up, and you know, like I said, she was gonna come help me walk. And you guys, you guys, tell me why I peed all over myself. And I peed so much, it went all over the floor and it was just a freaking huge mess. I was so embarrassed, and I know there's nothing to be embarrassed about, because I mean I just had twins. Like, I'm bound to make some type of mess down there so at some point. But I had not peed on myself my entire pregnancy, because you know, so many women have stories about like they laughed too hard and they peed themselves, or they sneezed and peed themselves. I hadn't peed myself the entire pregnancy, not even like a sneeze and nothing came out. Like I stayed dry the whole time. So I was just more like mad at myself, like, now you want to pee yourself after you have the kids. And like my nurse, poor thing, she had to clean all that up. But at least at the end of the day I peed and I didn't have to get a catheter put back in. But I remember just being horrified that I peed on the floor like that. And my nurse, on top of that, she was pregnant and she had to clean it all up. And I was like telling her, I was like, I am so sorry. But she was laughing. She just said, this happens, like, you just had surgery, you're fine. But the fact that I peed on myself after all those months of being pregnant, that's when I want to pee myself, when I'm not even pregnant anymore. Obviously after you have a C-section and even a baby, your nurses want you to start walking as soon as possible. So I would get my little cart and I would push the babies throughout the like the halls and the rooms, and I would just go all over the little maternity ward, just pushing my little cart, and Brandon would be right behind me, you know, just to help if I needed it. I just remember again being really swollen. I'm already as white as it gets, but I was very pale. Like, I looked sickly, so I did not look cute at all. Some women look so cute when they have their babies. I was not one of them. I looked rough and I looked sick and pale and just really swollen everywhere. My hands were swollen. Like, I felt like marshmallows. Like, everything was just, I was just a whole marshmallow basically. I was super puffy and squishy. Start talking recovery. You need to get up and walk, you know, try to move as much as you can, but do not push yourself. You are going to regret it. It's going to hurt really bad. Know your limits. Don't feel like you need to be superwoman. Just do the basics and things will start to come easier and easier every day. So I do still have a scar from it. Some women don't scar, but the way my skin is, my genetics, I don't know, I can scar very easily. So I do still see my scar, and it's not that bad. I don't really care, because it's not like I show that part of my body all the time. And they do tell you, don't wash your cut with like soap that smells good. Really, you should just have like an antibacterial soap, if no soap at all, with just warm water. And don't make your cut, like, don't put water directly on your cut. Just let the water, like, whatever's falling on your body that's enough for your cut. You don't need to be doing anything else to it. Obviously, don't be picking at it, don't be touching it. If anything, I just ignored it until I was in the shower, and I would just kind of let the water, I would just kind of let the water, you know, run down me and clean my cut. And I didn't bother with it too much. And I didn't wear jeans right away. I lived in like high-waist leggings for the longest time. I'm gonna go into questions now. I had asked my Instagram followers if they had any questions for me. So a lot of people asked, like, how long did you take to heal? Can you explain the recovery process? Just things like that. I got about 5 questions like that, so I'm going to answer all of that in one general answer. So like I mentioned earlier, it took me the full 8 weeks to recover from my C-section, but that doesn't mean that I was able to go run and pick heavy things up still. So I had to take it really easy even after my 8-week recovery was done, and my doctor said I was good to go on things. I still physically wasn't like ready to have adult time again, I was still in pain. I still couldn't pick up things that were like 5 to 10 pounds just because it's like it strained my stomach muscle so much that it caused me pain, and the pain would just shoot everywhere. So I tried not to pick too many things up that were heavy. So as far as like that goes, like the recovery did take a little while, like when it comes to like physical things, but my cut itself healed, and I can't complain about that. It healed quickly. I had no issues with it, and yeah, it closed up basically. But even to this day, sometimes if I pick something up the wrong way, or like say if I move something heavy, sometimes I'll feel the pain still. It's really weird. I know it's from my cut. I don't know if it's just muscles down there or what, but to this day I still feel something if I do something wrong. Sometimes I'll like sit there and feel my cut area, and it's still numb to this day. I think it's because, you know, they cut nerves, so I don't know if I'll ever get the feeling back, but in some areas of my cut it's numb. I don't feel anything. It's the weirdest thing. So someone said, was it your choice to have a C-section, or was it something that needed to be done? So again, like I said, I was the one who chose the C-section. Again, that's not a choice for everyone. As we all know, your labor can go any direction, you know what I mean? Like you have to listen to your body. But for me, I chose to do a C-section. But like I mentioned, I wanted that outcome because I was more afraid of doing the whole delivery and you know, pushing a baby out, having like pain from that plus a C-section. I didn't want everything down there hurting. I just wanted like one thing at a time. So I opted for the C-section. So I feel like that's it. Like I said, all of the questions were pretty much the same. They were just all asked differently. So that was my labor and delivery story, and just kind of a little bit about my recovery. I hope that this video kind of gives you some insight if you have to go through a C-section, or again, if you're pregnant with twins and they're telling you this might happen. I'm here to tell you that I survived it. I had a really good experience. And does that mean that it was easy? No, it was some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna stop talking now, and I will see you guys in my next one. Thank you so much for watching.